Why I do not argue with strangers on the internet. I don't know if it's just that I am that spiritually advanced or spiritually mature. Friendly reminder, this channel is for a secular audience, so my messages are for everyone. I don't make religious videos for this channel. I am a Latin Catholic and I don't hide that fact, but my secular page is just that, secular. I do make content for Christians for Faith and Reason Studios, so look them up on YouTube if you want more of this, but speaking about theological things. This channel is more about relationships, psychology, biology, sociology. That said, I do reference the content I'm influenced by, of course. But don't think that simply because I reference reading a book by a priest, I'm getting ready to beat you over the head with religion. I'm not. I realize most of my audience does not share my belief system. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. I do not argue with people on social media. Oftentimes, the person who walks away from a mudslinging argument is looked upon as the one who loses the argument. I'll get into why that's not the case, but for right now, let's start off with why I don't even bother. One of the best books I've ever encountered is The Intellectual Life by... I'm not even going to try to say his name because I know I'll say it wrong because, yes, Lonnie, I've got a speech impediment. Do you feel better now that you've pointed that out? The book is about the importance of safeguarding your intellectual pursuits and a guide on how to do so, as well as advancing in them. In the third chapter, the priest goes over how to go about organizing one's intellectual life. There are some interesting points he makes, and I'm going to share some of them with you, in light of choosing not to engage with internet trolls or boisterous know-nothings. Usually, such people who spit vitriol are not looking to engage anyone else in a battle of the wits, but rather a battle of misplaced confidence on their ability to be horrible and unbearable. I do not engage with horrible, unbearable people who display for me right away that I ought not respect them intellectually. And the good priest sums up why. If one wishes to be an intellectual, that is, to dedicate yourself to intellectual pursuits, you must find ways to simplify your life. Part of that is pushing out unnecessary outside stimuli. Such unnecessary stimuli would include those who wish to rattle and shake you emotionally, needlessly, and what's more, waste your time. Wise and peaceful work must not be associated with noisy and spasmodic interruptions of a life on the outside. To be an intellectual, you must put that pursuit above all else, which means it comes even before your honor among the dishonorable. There is a luxury tax to be paid on intellectual greatness. The truth is that you must have thick skin to advance and become great in any aspect. Those with thin skin cannot be leaders. They cannot either be masters of their lives and certainly not intellectuals. Because you see, the outside world will always be there. There will always be people who hate you, waiting to lure you away from your studies and productive life. Society is fatal to study. In chapter 3 of The Intellectual Life, the good priest goes on to say, do not let yourself get entangled in that mesh of occupations which little by little monopolizes time, thought, resources, power. Conventions must not dictate to you. And I'll add, such as conventions of always replying to someone on social media. He goes on, be your own guide. Obey your own convictions, not mere custom. And the convictions of an intellectual must correspond to the goal at which he is aiming. How do meaningless squabbles not waste your time? How do they get you closer to your personal goals? Vocation means concentration. The intellectual is consecrated. Let them not scatter themselves in exacting futilities. Let them throw all their resources into the fire of inspiration. He adds, money and attention squandered on trifles would be better spent in collecting a library, which, as you know, I need myself for all the venom I walk away from. To enter into a place of inspiration, enthusiasm, ardent research, and genius of invention, we must give up unproductive things and surely abhor anything which would draw us away from that dwelling. Without retirement, there is no inspiration, and one is not retiring if they allow themselves to be emotionally plundered or allow sand in their hourglass to be spent on silly things. Perhaps you'd argue that defending your honor against someone else isn't a silly thing, but I assure you, it is. What's the point? Do you think that you can make someone who cannot fathom basic dignity and respect you? Oh, you're the magical wizard for the job? Far too prideful, which is the root of the issue in the first place. You care more about defending your honor than dedicating your life to better pursuits. There have been times where I've been tempted to set the record straight, but I end up not even bothering, because you cannot convince someone to understand you when they are dedicated to misunderstanding you. I touched down on this in my video, How to Bear Insults, Dealing with Bullies. I do not have it within me to care when people call me names or criticize me. I haven't for a very long time, since I actually started making videos on a separate channel a good dozen years ago, and I got my first dose of absolute vitriol then from internet lovies. Someone once actually tried to convince other people I was a man, before it was in vogue. That one was actually pretty funny. I understand having no desire to stand up for yourself might be very difficult for people to fathom, as it was difficult for me to fathom that others cared so much when they were personally attacked. People cannot understand a level of emotional stability when they have never experienced it, which is why they will always be shocked when someone responds to disrespect in a calm and balanced way. It's like a pervert not understanding how others could not be perverted. Their brains simply cannot fathom others being different from them, especially since they are in a state of constant insecurity, since they are emotionally unhealthy, and therefore they feel the need to lash out at others. I actually delve into the psychology of a bully in that other video I mentioned, so go watch that if you want more information about that. Side note, have you noticed everyone is always so much bigger and badder on the internet? And always right? But I'd probably totally be able to take someone on if it came to a face-to-face fight. Any aliens watching our interactions might conclude that the loudest, most venom-filled aggressor is the victor. Yes? I mean, clearly, the one who wishes more harm on the other must be the more evolved human being. Anyway, I learned rather young in age that people cannot control how other people think of you. Therefore, why bother trying to change their minds? If someone is a nasty, intellectually lazy person, how advantageous is it to spend an ounce of time and energy with them? You might be thinking, well, it's a good thing to take people to task, since that way they might learn something, or others might read and learn something. That's all well and good. But if you take a fool to task, do not do it to preserve your honor or prove them dishonorable, since that's usually a lost cause in the internet arena. And oftentimes, it will turn you into the kind of person you are better off not being. No, if you take someone to task, it ought to be void of any emotion from you, and then you can glean what merits you can from practicing the art of debate, refreshing your own mind of important information you might have forgotten, and giving onlooking readers a chance at seeing some valid points in information. However, I do not argue with people. Here and there, I'll debate. But what I usually encounter are those who aren't worth my time. I mean, I'm not saying that to sound mean, but look at it from this perspective. I've got 5 children. Sitting and writing out a long essay-length comment to someone about how big of a moron they are could take upwards of 10 minutes at a time. That's time I'm wasting. The truth is, if I'm not taking care of my home and duties, working on any of my ministries or Veritas on the Rocks, I'm doing something of my choosing that I find enjoyable. If I waste my time arguing with someone filled with vitriol, they actually become a thief of joy. But I've given them full permission to be. Now, if there's anything I've sworn to do, it's to never give bullies more power, whether over my emotions or my time. A fight is not a debate. One is fruitful and the other is not. Just imagine how few intellectual pursuits a bully has to fill their time. However, does this mean you ought to never respond or correct people who need to be, especially since they may lead others astray? Absolutely not. If you have wisdom or intelligence, you are obligated to share it for the greater good of humanity, and woe to you if you do not. Of course, this ought to be done with temperance and without wasting a great amount of time. The quicker one gets their point across, point blank, the better, whether it's citing statistics or calling someone out for their foolish behavior. The only times I have ever displayed any harsh language is towards bad Catholics who are behaving abhorrently on full public display, leading people astray. Because apparently few other Catholics have the guts to, which, off script, really wish more of you guys would stand up. Tired of getting those messages, good job standing up to so-and-so. I'm really tired of it. It'd be good if some more people actually stood up. Or maybe you're just afraid of the big bad bullies making you look bad. Anyway, once someone is corrected in the bare essence, you're done. There's no point staying and arguing, because then that is doing something called casting your pearls before swine. If you do not know this term, I encourage you to look it up. It's a rather lovely way to remind one not to waste your time trying to convince fools. Personal anecdote: I once watched, for a couple days, a very public post from former Catholics bashing the church and declaring all these horribly invalid reasons as to why they were leaving the faith, seeking validation from others and refusing to listen to those who were casting their pearls before them. I watched, I waited, I calculated, and I figured out the best way to get to them, to get the message through. In one line, I simply commented, pointing out the logical error with use of language simple and strong enough to cause pause. And then, naturally, when I was immediately attacked, I ignored the onslaught. I was done. I simply pointed out how they were committing the exact same sin they were accusing others of, and said, "Okay, coward." Of course, people came after me and tried to invalidate my statement, but they couldn't. The truth is like a lion. You set it free, you don't have to defend it. It defends itself. Then people tried to undermine my statement with attempting to dig up dirt on me and twist my words, because apparently one cannot speak truth unless they are absolutely perfect. Didn't you know? People kept trying to summon me back to fight with them, and I just didn't participate. Why would I? To attempt to garnish respect from people I find unrespectable? I went on to edit my behind-the-scenes video of my plague doctor photo shoot, which is great fun if you haven't seen it. And I went about my life not thinking about it, not really thinking about the situation, not bothering to waste my time thinking about the hate. In an attempt to engage me further, since I just wasn't participating, 2 days later, after I had stopped remembering the whole thing, these people started harassing me personally on my own profile because I said that line. Still, there's no use in trying to defend your honor in a slander fight. Onlookers will agree with you or they will not, and it's actually the responsibility of those who are watching someone be bullied to take a stand and defend the innocent's honor. Of course, I have a video about this as well, called The Evil of Neutrality. You will find that those dedicated to hating you will, no matter what. I ended up blocking these people simply because they wouldn't leave me alone and trying to force me to waste my time. This is what you must do. I understand people think that walking away from a fight is perceived as losing, but it's not. Walking away from an unwinnable argument, since the end result of others seeing reason is not going to happen, it's actually taking the higher ground. Not bothering to defend yourself by avoiding to wrestle in the mud with others is somehow seen as uncivilized and wimpy. There are always going to be people looking to take out aggression on others because most of the world is insecure and bitter about it. Most people are triggered by someone who they cannot emotionally control, since they themselves are so emotionally controlled. If you were to state an opinion about anything on the internet, you immediately invite fools who wish death upon you, who have their confidence wrapped up in how much they can insult you and try to hurt your feelings and waste your time. What if we, as a collective society, viewed the victor as the person who walked away from the mud, then we'd be a people who seek to avoid mudslinging, lest we be looked upon as pigs. We'd be a society that encourages civilized discourse and respect for human dignity. We'd be a society that doesn't shut down the intellectual, who doesn't bother speaking because the fool shrieks and wails and is generally annoying to deal with. Now, of course, there's also the matter of recent blatant censorship. Right-think is rampant now. And if one were to even bother linking someone's statistics or lectures, if they spoke against an established narrative of an admin or a social media platform, they are silenced. So the intellectuals are not even allowed to have discourse anyway. What I will always do, since I've had my own profile threatened on several occasions, is state plain facts. Oftentimes, people will become outraged by the things that I say, go and research in order to rebuke me after calling me an array of colorful names. Then they have an actual shot at becoming informed. That's the goal, not to inform, but to inspire others to become informed. You may notice that I say certain things in my videos that may ring a bell, so one might go to look up the verbiage. That's why I speak how I speak. Yes, I know this invites condemnation, but that's the beauty of it. I don't care. I don't argue with people on the internet. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the absolutely delicious opportunity to respond to people who dislike you. But Regina, you just said you don't argue with people on the internet. Darling, a reply is not arguing. I take great pleasure in responding to those who wish to offend me, shocking them, having my bit of fun. People do not expect others not to argue back, and they certainly don't expect a slapback one-line or sarcastic reply. People seek to attack in order to break one's confidence. Imagine how irksome I am to someone who insults my hair just to ask them why they can't love me how God made me. As I've stated, I'm Catholic. Therefore, most people immediately hate me. I'm also someone who takes on bad Catholics, so a hefty percentage of Catholics don't like me as well. But imagine how much I enjoy being in an anti-Catholic group and responding to their nastiness. Once, I read someone say that Catholics were coming off of their weekly night of drunken orgies, and I simply said, "Oh no, did I miss the memo for the drunken orgies?" You mean, here I thought I was part of a religion that said something like this was a no-no, but I've been wrong all along. Can someone please just shoot me a memo the next time I'm supposed to participate? FOMO. But as an intellectual, shouldn't you avoid saying replies to these kind of things at all? There are a few other things in life that recharge me more or give me more enthusiasm to spread the truth than messing with bullies to amuse myself. So really, it's more like a ministry if you think about it. But insofar as pointless mudslinging with people, some of whom would probably shank me if given the chance, hard pass. Therefore, all in all, if one wishes to be an intellectual and chase after things such as veritas and beauty, you don't have the luxury of wasting your time arguing with fools, or even staying around to have mud slung upon you. I've noticed that those who are true intellectuals aren't the ones telling others they are idiots or wishing death upon them. Kind of a giveaway as to the opposite. Love thy neighbor, even when they're silly. I'm Regina Lex with Veritas on the Rocks. Now ignite the truth and boldly go.